With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is Prop Point on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, welcome to Prop Points. Jeff Erickson here with Nick Whalen. It is a heavy baseball day today. Lots of day baseball going on. I'm always in a good mood when I got all sorts of day baseball, so that makes me in a happy place there. We're going to do a new segment called To Bet or Not to Bet. We're also going to do Play It or Pass It NBA style. We're going to have Len Hochberg come down the Progressive Guest Line to help us preview the Valero Texas Open. And finally, we're going to preview the rest of the baseball slate with some of my favorite bets for games that are starting after our show. But first, Nick, let's get started here on a couple of the things that are going on in the day games. First of all, the local 9, your Milwaukee Brewers, we got a Jackson Chourio homer for the first time this year.
Yeah, we got 4 games in action right now. Twins, White Sox should have first pitch in that one. That is Sean Burke going up against Pablo Lopez. That one's starting in about 10 minutes. So yeah, after a Tuesday where we had virtually no day games, at least not for me here in the Central Time Zone, we're back where we need to be. First home run of the year for Jackson Chourio. Good to see the Brewers, get off the schneid yesterday after what was just a beyond disastrous first 4 games of the season. Get swept by the Yankees. You get blown out 11-1 in the opening game against Kansas City, but we're able to pull the shutout yesterday and, off to a solid start here. We already are through the 4th inning, or heading to the bottom of the 4th, I should say. 1-1 in that one. Brewers have 4 hits on the board, including that Chourio homer.
Yeah, good pitching matchup in that one, too. Cole Reagans versus Freddie Peralta. Yep. Reagans with 7 strikeouts already. Cardinals are up, I should say, are trailing the Angels 1-0. We got a Mike Trout homer for the first time this year. And again, and this is where we're getting the second time around from some of the aces. Sonny Gray versus Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi, 4 Ks, 4 walks, all over the place there. Sonny Gray with the 5 strikeouts and the 1 homer allowed there. In Cincinnati, they're already in the bottom of the 6th. It's a fast-moving game. Another game here where the hitters aren't doing a whole lot. It's Hunter Green versus Jack Leiter. It is 1-0 Rangers right now. Hunter Green with 6 Ks. Leiter, 5 shutout innings, 1 hit, no walks, 6 Ks. They just pulled him after 75 pitches, so kind of a quick hook. Great, 2 good outings in a row for Leiter. Got to say, that's one of the bigger developments of the season. If he can, control, have that command like he's had in 2 straight starts now, look out, because his stuff is nasty.
Yeah, no question about that. And, a guy who had a lot of ups and downs after coming up last year, mostly downs, at least from what I remember, Jeff. Mm-hmm. But good to see him getting another quality start under his belt to begin this year. And we've had 2 very different games so far in this series. Runs all over the place on Monday, a 1-0 game yesterday, and now another more of a pitcher's duel today to finish this one out. And Hunter Green looking good in his own right, Jeff. 6 innings, just 3 hits, 6 strikeouts for him.
Yep. And speaking of pitcher duels, we have another 1-0 game in Florida. Pirates 1-0 over the Rays. It's Paul Skeens Day. I like Paul Skeens Day. It's like it's like The Office era. Stanley loves he loves Bagel Day there. But it's not Bagel Day. No, it's not that. I got it wrong.
It's Pretzel Day.
But,
it's Pretzel Day.
Pretzel Day. That's right. Pretzel Day. Thank you.
Yes.
God. What a fail by me there.
Yeah. Well,
anyways,
Paul Skeens,
I love Paul Skeens.
We're always looking at the strikeout props, of course, when it comes to Paul Skeens, and he's worked through 3 innings so far. He's given up only 2 hits, but just 1 strikeout so far for Paul Skeens. That line was at 7.5 at DraftKings earlier today, so not looking great right now. We'll see how long he remains in the game. He's at 41 pitches so far through 3 innings, and Ryan Pepiot so far kind of matching him on the other side. He has given up 3 hits. He has issued 3 walks, but a couple of strikeouts for him, and another nice pitching matchup here in the early window.
Yep. So all these low-scoring games kind of leads to our first question on our new segment, to bet or not to bet. Could the torpedo bats give baseball bettors a better chance to win these type of bets? Hits, RBIs, home runs, overs. Are we seeing that? I mean, what's your opinion on that? we all like having something going on in the games. Do you think this changes our betting outlook?
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit. I know yesterday DraftKings was offering, specific torpedo bat markets, where you could essentially parlay players who have been confirmed to use that bat, and, just a way to, I think, draw in more casual fans. Of course, we know the books love parlays, so I was not surprised to see that out there. Did not see those same offerings for today's slate quite yet. Maybe they'll be up for the night slate. But now, in general, I think that it certainly feels at least like it's increased home run potential, although so much of that, is based on that Yankee series against the Brewers over the weekend. And Aaron Judge, of course, is not a torpedo bat user himself. He was the one leading the way. So, I don't think we've necessarily seen different pricing. We haven't really seen sports books, jacking things up because of the torpedo bat. And I know you've done a lot of looking into this, Jeff, over the first 5 or 6 days of the regular season. It's not like scoring is way up. It's not like batting average is way up.
No. Batting average is way down, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. It was 243 last year, which in and of itself was 5 points below 2023 when we instituted the anti-shift rules. Supposed to help batting average, right? Instead, something different has happened here. Yeah. Teams are hitting collectively. Major League Baseball collectively is hitting 233 going into today's games, 10 points below. Now, some of this is we're looking at cold weather samples versus a full season sample from last year. So take that with the appropriate metric ton of salt. But I do think we got to be careful not to overreact to just one series by the Yankees against the Brewers pitching staff.
Right.
That is, let's just say it's challenged. It's not the strongest pitching staff in baseball right now, today notwithstanding. I think we should be careful not to overreact. I do think this innovation is good for baseball, and I want hitters to have a little bit of a benefit there. But yeah, let's not overreact too much just there yet. We had a Maddox yesterday, a 99 pitch complete game shutout by Nathan Eovaldi. We had a couple of shutouts yesterday as a whole. The Braves are hitting like $130. The Astros have scored 9 runs in 5 games. We have plenty of counterexamples of how maybe not everybody's on board with a torpedo bat yet, but let's face it, it's a tough hitting environment out there, even still.
Yeah, no question. I think the larger sample would suggest that the torpedo bat has not necessarily had the impact that maybe the way it's been discussed so far would lead you to believe.
Right. Let's move on to basketball. Should we take a futures bet on Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets? Jokic went crazy last night, a 61-point triple-double, albeit in double overtime, albeit with a horrific collapse at the end by Russell Westbrook. Mm-hmm. Should we take futures bet odds on Jokic and the Nuggets? To bet or not to bet?
Yeah, it's an interesting time, certainly, to ponder this question, given what happened with the Nuggets last night. Shout out to Russell Westbrook with just the most late career Russell Westbrook sequence possible. Blows the layup, runs back down, and fouls a 3-point shooter to basically hand Minnesota the game in double OT. But really, to me, Jeff, it's going to come down to who gets the 3 seed or perhaps even the 6 seed. What I'm talking about is dodging the Oklahoma City Thunder in round 2, because I think right now, Memphis is that team that you want to target as far as a first round matchup. Right now, they are the 6 seed. We'll see if they remain there because they're technically tied with Minnesota. They're only a half game up on the LA Clippers. The Warriors, the Lakers are still in that zone as well. So there's still plenty to be settled over the next week and a half. But you want to play Memphis, and I think by default you want to play Houston. I know the Rockets have been really good lately. They're a great defensive team. They're deep. I think you'd still rather play them than you would Denver or LA or Golden State or even Minnesota or the Clippers in a first-round series. So it's really hard to forecast what those matchups are going to look like right now, but it all comes down to, can you get that 3 seed? That's where Denver currently sits right now, because I think they'll win that first-round matchup. If you can get Houston, if you can get any of those other teams that I mentioned who are currently in the play-in right now, I think you feel better about that than matching up with OKC. But we haven't seen the market move. It's not like you're getting a better number right now because Denver lost last night. They still have a very winnable game tonight against the Spurs on the second night of a back-to-back. They've basically been locked in at around 6-1 to win the Western Conference. It still feels to me like OKC is that kingpin team. It's no fun to bet them right now at minus 140. If it's between Denver, Golden State, and the Lakers, I do give a slight lean to the Denver Nuggets, but I think those teams are really close. I think those teams are really, really close. And honestly, a Nuggets-Lakers second round, that is the matchup that I'm hoping for. I hope the standings give us that.
Yeah, right now, and the thing is, it's so fluid right now. It's so compact in the West. But after OKC, Memphis could drop all the way down to the 8 line and go in that there. I think, a little dangerous for Denver too is if they do finish where they currently stand as the 3, and Minnesota gets up to the 6. I mean, we saw that series last year. It's not a good matchup for Denver. So be fun. I think as a fan, it'd be super fun to see that. But I'm sure Denver would like to see that much, much, much later there than in the first round of the playoffs after the play-in. They'd like to see Minnesota get stuck in the play-in is what they'd rather see there. But we'll see about that, see if that really truly happens. We got another to bet or not to bet on NFL futures. But first, quick note here. The tournament may be winding down, but the betting action never stops. Major League Baseball is back. NBA and NHL playoffs are around the corner, and the Masters and NFL draft are just weeks away. Stay ahead of every opportunity with the VSiN Pro subscription for just $9.99 and get daily best bets from VSiN hosts and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the VSiN Watch app, plus our MLB season betting guide and upcoming Kentucky Derby betting guide. No matter the sport, VSiN Pro has you covered. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe for just $9.99. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. Let's take our attention over to the NFL. Some NFL win totals. What's the best NFL win total to bet the over right now, even before the draft, between these three teams on the board, these high projected win teams? The Eagles, Chiefs, and Bills, all at 11.5 wins. The Bills, you have to pay a -145 price. The other two at -110.
Maybe I'm just a huge square, Jeff. I kind of like all these on paper. I really do. I still think the hierarchy that we saw last year is going to carry over for the most part this season. Now, obviously, injuries could derail that, but you look at the Chiefs, they've gone over this number in 6 of the last 7 years. They got very lucky last year over and over. That is a concern, but a healthy Rashee Rice, that matters a ton. A healthy Hollywood Brown, they didn't have him until the very end of the season. Can they build up that O-line to the point that it's dependable? We will see. It's a team that gets the AFC South. They get the NFC East out of division. I like the Chiefs over 11.5, and I really don't mind the Bills either. There's a reason that's -145.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. We're going to shift our attention to the NBA, to tonight's slate. Play it or pass it. Coming up next on Prop Points.
Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Prop Points. Jeff Erickson, Nick Whalen from Rotowire. Go check out all of our content at rotowire.com/VSiN for a free 2-day trial. Peek behind the paywall. No credit card required. We just want you to try out the site. We think you'll like it. You'll want to subscribe. Let's do play it or pass it, NBA style, Nick. It's our critically acclaimed, world-renowned segment here. With the wild NBA slate tonight here. First of all, before we talk about an individual player or pass it, just comment real briefly how different this slate is this late in the season. Mm-hmm. It's really tricky.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, there being some essentially stay away type of games just about every night when you got these teams, in the Eastern Conference that are all trying to race to the bottom. If the Utah Jazz are involved, you never know what's going to happen. Well, we have 9 games on the slate tonight, Jeff, and currently 7 of those 9 games are carrying a double-digit spread. Like the only game that's really projected to be competitive here is the Hawks and the Mavericks, and that is a big game for Dallas. They're 4-point home favorites, but other than that, everything else is at least 9.5. And the exception here is Spurs Nuggets, which is 9.5 right now. It opened at 15 last night, and if you were following the line movement, as that game between Denver and Minnesota moved into overtime and then double overtime, you just started seeing that line drop and drop and drop. So we've seen, essentially 5.5 points of movement. It was at 15 at FanDuel, 13.5 at DraftKings. A lot of movement on that game with the expectation that the Denver Nuggets rest some starters after a high minute night on the second night of a back-to-back. So this is a night maybe where you're looking at some first half numbers. Maybe you're looking more at the prop market than you are sides, but we'll get into that.
All right, let's jump into play it or pass it. We got one game that's an interesting game. Knicks, Cavs. I mean, both teams are pretty much locked into their seeds, but still 2 very good teams. Yeah. We're going to focus, though, on the 3-point line. Darius Garland, over 2.5 made threes. Play it or pass it at +100.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, this is, of course, one of those games that does have a double-digit spread. And, we're talking about the 1 seed versus the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. So this number is a little bit bigger than I expected, but Cavs should have all their guys tonight. The Knicks should have Karl Anthony Towns back. He was moved from questionable to probable. Didn't really see a huge impact on that line. So when it comes to Garland, this is at plus 100 tonight. He's been averaging just under this number over his last 10 games. I lean toward a pass at the over 2.5. Now, the Knicks are number one in the NBA in terms of limiting opponent three-point attempts over the last 10 games. And we've seen this team have to play a little bit of a different style without Jalen Brunson. They've become more of a defensive team. They're slowing it down. They're moving the ball around more offensively, but they have clamped down on defense. Again, number one in limiting opponent threes. They're also top 5 in terms of limiting their opponent's three-point percentage. Just held the Sixers to 6 of 31 from beyond the arc last night. Now, there's a big difference between the Sixers and the Cavs, but the Cavs, again, should have their full team out there. This isn't a night where you're resting Donovan Mitchell and you see more usage for Darius Garland. He's only gone over this number about 30% of his games this season, so this is a pass for me.
All right. Let's move on. Pistons Thunder. Some low concern in this game. I don't know if we'll have Cunningham for the Pistons. Chet Holmgren, though, is who we're going to focus on his rebounding prop. Chet Holmgren over 8.5 rebounds at plus 124.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Holmgren, again, much like Garland, has been averaging just under this number over his last 10 games. Like you said, certainly some blowout potential here. Cade Cunningham is doubtful. Hasn't been much indication that will change. Tobias Harris also on the injury report for Detroit. Holmgren has not faced the Pistons this season. They, of course, will only play twice. He was out for the first matchup a couple of weeks ago. The key here for me is that, again, the Thunder should have most of their guys tonight. It's really nobody of real consequence on the injury report right now, I guess, unless we're counting Alex Caruso. But that means Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be out there. He's a high volume rebounder. And the Thunder, partially because they play so many blowout wins, but partially because they're also, being careful with Chet Holmgren. He's only averaging about 28 minutes per game since ramping up from that injury. So you combine that with the blowout potential, with the fact that he's gone under this number in 6 of his last 9 games. This is going to be another pass for me. Now, I would look at Tim Hardaway over 2.5 threes, maybe dip into Malik Beasley over 3.5 threes. That's going to be the recipe for Detroit hanging in this game. Also taking a look at SGA over 10.5 assists plus rebounds. Last time out, went over this in assists alone. Did not have a single rebound, but gave you 12 assists.
All right. So X gets the square on Holmgren at least. So we're 0 for 2 in trying to get play it or pass it. Let's move on. Celtics hosting the Heat, who are suddenly cromulent, good even, won a few games in a row, or maybe just playing bad teams. Jason Tatum, though, over 41.5 PRA, minus 110. What's your lookout here?
Well, I'm getting some PTSD here, Jeff, because one of my favorite plays on Monday's show was this exact same number, the over 41.5 points, rebounds, assists for Jason Tatum. That was against Memphis, ended at 41. Right at 41. And that was just a brutal fourth quarter. Tatum, I think, finished like 2 of 11 from 3. Just needed one of those to go down at any point. He even took one in garbage time with like 20 seconds on the clock. That would have pushed us over. But anyway, we will move on. We have big injury questions, as we do basically every night now, for Boston. Holiday, Brown, Horford, Porzingis, all currently on the injury report. So tough to say who's going to be out there. Obviously, if you take away, say, Porzingis and Brown, I like this number quite a bit. We would see it rise. But Tatum has gone under this number in 2 of 3 games against Miami. Really might just come down to, is he hot from 3 or not, as it did earlier this week. And he's shooting just 26% from beyond the arc over his last 6 games. So he's been off more than he's been on of late. You look at this Heat team, yeah, they're playing a little bit better. I mean, they have played Washington, Philly, Atlanta, and Charlotte in 4 of their last 5 games. So I think that's why. But they are giving up the 4th fewest points, the 6th fewest assists, the 8th fewest rebounds. So this is not a good matchup in the way that it was against Memphis earlier in the week. We're going 3 for 3 here on passes, Jeff. I am not touching this one, but I will try to give you an alternate bet here. I look at the under 100.5 on the Heat team total. They've scored 91, 85, and 89 in 3 meetings with Boston this season. They won't have Andrew Wiggins, and they won't have their best 3-point shooter in Duncan Robinson.
All right. 3 passes and a number of alternate plays instead. We'll see if we can find an actual play coming up next. But first, put your skills to the test in the Hoops and Horses Pick'em Challenge, brought to you by our friends at First Bet. Sign up for free to play at vsin.com/hoopsandhorses and make your picks for Saturday's marquee horse races and basketball matchups. Top pickers will receive First Bet vouchers that you can use to bet upcoming races on First Bet, including the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, May 3rd. From the hardwood to the home stretch, play now at vsin.com/hoopsandhorses. All right. Play it or pass it. Chris Paul, over 7.5 points, plus 105.
I don't think I've played a Chris Paul prop all season. So I like that we're getting in the mud here a little bit.
Crazy,
so yeah,
folks.
it's at plus money. Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul has just been lighting it up. 8.1 points per game over his last 10. You look at the two previous matchups for CP3 going up against the Nuggets this season. 7 points, 2 points on a combined 4 of 20 shooting. Not ideal, but at least he's getting shots up. This is a total toss-up for me at 7.5. I mean, if he goes over, it's not going to be by much. Chris Paul, not really much of a scorer at this point in his career. We also need to know, who, if anyone, Denver will be resting tonight. Certainly the line implies that, probably Jokic, maybe Murray could get the night off. But either way, I mean, they are a bottom 10 scoring defense against the point guard position. They're a bottom 5 scoring defense overall over the last 10 games. So, we can't go 0 for 4 here, Jeff. We'll play this one. We'll play Chris Paul over 7.5 points. This could also be a Devin Vassell spot as well. I would look at the over 2.5 threes for Vassell. He's gone over that number in 11 of his last 16. He's averaging 3.3 makes per game in that span. And Denver, again, bottom 10 in three-pointers allowed. Opponents are shooting almost 40% from beyond the arc against Denver over the last 2 weeks.
Before we look at some of these big favorites in the lines tonight here, I got to ask you, Carmelo Anthony, first ballot Hall of Famer, play it or pass it?
Oh, play it. Play it, baby. He's in. That was the big news earlier this morning. I mean, you got to keep in mind that the Basketball Hall of Fame does not really operate by the same parameters as the baseball or even the football Hall of Fame, where maybe the equivalent of Carmelo Anthony in those sports, he probably gets in, but maybe he's not first ballot given the lack of postseason success, never really sniffed a title. But it is the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. So his case is boosted by the 3 gold medals. When you think of Olympic Melo, you think of Melo at his absolute peak, obviously had the national championship run at Syracuse as well. So with the way the Basketball Hall of Fame operates, total no-brainer.
All right, very good. I thought so, but I thought I wanted to give you the floor on that. Just a way to kind of squeeze in Melo making it there. Congrats to Melo for that. Okay, quickly, we've got all sorts of big favorites to cover tonight. Charlotte, Indy, minus 14.5. We mentioned Knicks, Cleveland, minus 11. Sacramento somehow is a 13-point favorite despite the way they're playing because they're playing the Wizards. Miami, Boston, 11-point favorite. Utah, Houston, a 16.5-point favorite. OKC, Detroit, 13-point favorite. Play it or pass on all these big favorites to cover tonight.
Well, I'm certainly not playing all of them. I'll tell you that. I'll pick out a couple that I would entertain. I mean, I think Indy, that number's up to 15.5 now. I think we're going to see some pretty aggressive rest from the Hornets. Hornets only up 2 games on the Pelicans for that final spot in the bottom 3 in the best lottery odds. This is one where I'd look at the Pacers' first half line, look at the Pacers' second half line. They're outscoring opponents by 10 points per game in the second half over their last 3. Sacramento, Washington, that's one where you have a really motivated team in the Kings. Wizards are going to be resting some guys. So I would think about that. Maybe look at the over on the Kings team total as well. It should be a big pace up spot for Sacramento against the worst defense in the NBA in the Washington Wizards.
Not the Phoenix Suns, but close there as far as that goes. I like the phrase aggressive rest, too. I think that's fantastic. Len Hochberg joins us on the Progressive Guest Line. Next, this is Prop Points.
You're watching Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into Prop Points. Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson here with you. Time to talk a little golf, as we like to do on Wednesdays. It's not quite the Masters. We're still a little over a week away from that, and we'll have plenty of Masters coverage coming your way next week. And somebody that's going to be helping out with that is our good friend Len Hochberg, our golf betting expert over at Rotowire.com. You can find him on Twitter at Len Hochberg. He joins us right now on the Progressive Guest Line. So, Len, maybe we'll talk some Masters with you in a bit, but we got to start with the Valero Texas Open, the final warm-up for the Masters. And look, we don't have Scotty, we don't have Rory like we did last week, but an even deeper field when you get beyond those top 2. We got Ludwig Aubert, 12-1 to win the tournament. Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood, Patrick Cantlay, all short of 20-1. So what do you make of this field overall, despite the number 1 and number 2 in the world taking the week off?
Yeah, I would think that the Valero tournament organizers are pretty happy with this. Of all those names you mentioned, and then there's even a guy with a little bit longer odds, but probably the crowd favorite and just Texas native son, Jordan Spieth. So I think there's a lot of good storylines there this week. Fleetwood still looking for his first tournament. Oberg, who was runner-up at the Masters last year. What's he going to do this week? Gary Woodland coming off an incredible week last week. There'll be a lot of people rooting for him. He would need to win this tournament to get into the Masters. So there's a lot going on. And, if some of these guys are on the first page of the leaderboard come the weekend, I think the tournament people will be very happy.
Yeah, speaking of that Masters qualifications, it was the razor's edge between last week for the last in the top 50 in the world. Michael Kim just barely getting in there. There's always it's always a great story. It was always a negative story there. Someone missing by less than such a tiny margin there for that last spot. But so he had the sweetest withdrawal from this Open. But we've seen people win to get in. JJ Spawn 3 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is incredible. I mean, it's everywhere in sports. I mean, somebody finishes, 125th in the PGA Tour money list and somebody finishes 126th and their life is different. It takes a completely different arc. So Michael Kim was an incredible story. He was ranked in the 160s back in January, went on an incredible tear, the best of his career, even though he's a John Deere winner from 5, 6, 7 years ago or something like that. So yeah, it was pretty incredible. And Ben Griffin has one more shot this week in this field, number 51 in the world, Ben Griffin.
Talking with Len Hochberg. He joins us on the Progressive guest line, helping us preview the Valero Texas Open. Len, you always do a great job giving us picks, helping us with our DFS strategy, but you also do an excellent job breaking down the course, keeping an eye on the weather. What do we need to know about the Oaks course at TPC San Antonio? And is there anything in the weather this weekend that could change things?
Well, we're in Texas, so there's always weather, there's always wind, and it's always a consideration. So, and there is wind in the forecast this week. That's always the big thing down there. This is a moderately long course. It's a par 72. It's in the 7,400 yardage range, which isn't super, super long by today's standards, but there are some very long holes, and you do need to drive the ball well because it's very narrow in the fairway. And so that's it's certainly a key stat. But I think overall approach and tee to green this week, you have to get the greens are pretty big, but interestingly enough, it has one of the lowest greens in regulation percentage of any tournament through the years. And that is related to some runoffs around the green and also the wind. So approach play will be very important, as it usually is.
We're having a fun conversation earlier on the Rotowire show on SiriusXM Fantasy, talking about how favorites aren't necessarily, good bets here at this. It's never fun to bet a favorite anyhow, but especially at this, maybe due to the proximity of this tournament to the Masters, where a lot of the top guys are already in. So maybe they're working on specific things to get ready for the Masters.
Yeah, we've seen some long shots in this tournament. You mentioned J.J. Spawn 3 years ago. He was 100-1. Corey Connors, when he won here for the first time, 2019, 200-1, a lot shorter his second time around. And Akshay Bhatia last year, 66-1. So, I think it just lends itself to the fact that the tournament, the field, or the Masters looming next week, it does let you take some extra chances and perhaps hit.
Are you looking to stay ahead of the game? Rotowire has you covered with expert analysis, real-time updates, and the best fantasy and betting tools in the industry. Whether you're making picks, setting your lineup, or placing bets, our award-winning insights give you the edge you need. Get started today over at rotowire.com/VSiN and take your game to the next level. That's rotowire.com/VSiN, VSIN. Back with our friend Len Hochberg, joining us on the Progressive guest line here on Prop Points. Len, you mentioned Akshay Bhatia winning this tournament just a year ago as a long shot. I know he was 55-1 at some books, as long as 66-1, as you mentioned. Well, he's now 25-1 to repeat. Is he somebody you would consider?
I don't have him in my Rotowire article this week, Nick. I suspect he will play pretty well. I don't know if he will justify his price in DraftKings or in DFS or certainly I don't think he will win this tournament. I always think it's very hard, especially for a young guy, to come back the next year to a tournament. And you're just different when you come back. Everyone's congratulating you from a year later. You have media commitments, TV commitments, other kind of commitments. People always trying to get a little piece of you. And you feel maybe your chest is a little pumped up a little bit when you come back to the tournament the next year. And I think with the Masters next week, I think he is really, really keying on that. I think he thinks he can win that. I think he can do pretty well in his second go round at Augusta. So not somebody I'm looking at this week.
How about Corey Connors, two-time winner on this track, in good form? Are the betting odds, tight enough, big enough there to give us a real value in betting on Connors versus this field? Or would you look at maybe a top 5 or a top 10 bet instead?
I mean, if you looked at somebody like, winning a tournament 2 times in the last 5 or 6 years, coming in on form, coming in putting better than he's ever putted before, that you can make an argument that 16-1 is a fantastic price for Corey Connors. I think he's going to be a very popular play. I think people will play that. I mean, every week when you're looking at Scotty Scheffler at 3-1, 3.5-1, or Rory McIlroy at 6 or 7-1. 16-1 might look pretty darn good. And Connors should be a very popular play across all formats, and especially in one and done. So I think he's very attractive this week, and I think he will try to win this tournament, unlike looking ahead to the Masters.
Len, I know you have 3 golfers in that 25 to 30-1 range who you're keeping an eye on this week. Keegan Bradley, Denny McCarthy, Daniel Berger. Who's your favorite of those 3?
I would say Keegan Bradley. He's just been such a surprise, such a revelation. Just would have thought that the Ryder Cup captaincy would have taken precedence over his play on the course this year. And I guess I think it will at some point, but still kind of early in the season. He's been so strong. He hasn't played this tournament since 2022, but last time he was here, he had a top 10. He's playing far better now. As somebody who has to get the ball in the fairway and get the ball on the green, he's my favorite play there. But I do like the other 2. Denny McCarthy got it to 20 under last year, putting out of his mind, which always helps when you're trying to win a golf tournament.
Off the beaten path here, I'm going to ask you the inverse question here. Are all our Keegan Bradley's playing duties taking away from his Ryder Cup duties? I mean, Luke Donald's scheming away, getting ready for the Ryder Cup. Already has won once before. Is this hurting Keegan Bradley's prep for the Ryder Cup?
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to put that aside for anything. I'm sure he's still doing some Ryder Cup work, but there's still so much time till we even see who's on the team. I mean, when did they pick the team? At the end of August. So we have a lot. We have 4 majors and a lot going on since then. He has his captains in place. I'm sure they're having conversations. I think a bunch of them are here at this tournament. I saw the Valero tweeted that out, that Kevin Kisner and Webb Simpson are here. I think they're part of the vice captaincy. They're probably going to have a dinner this week and maybe start to ramp up a little bit. But no, I don't think he's going to put the Ryder Cup. He's going to, forego that for playing, but not in the least.
All right, Len, we got about 30 seconds. Give us a long shot we should be keeping an eye on for this week.
Tom Kim isn't the longest shot. He's 40-1. He's really good approach player. He has not had a great year. He's only had 1 top 10, but this is by far the weakest field he's been in all year. And so, I think that's an attractive price for him. And if you want to go really, really deep, Victor Perez, 80-1. He's had top 25s his last 3 tournaments, playing much better of late.
Len Hochberg, everybody. You can find all of his great work, all of his DFS breakdowns for us every week over at Rotowire.com. Check him out on Twitter at Len Hochberg. Going to be talking some baseball on the other side here on Prop Points. Jeff will give all of his best bets for the late slate. Got some score updates for you. A rain delay. All baseball coming up next here on Prop Points.
Watching Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Big day in Major League Baseball as we welcome you back to Prop Points here on VSiN, the sports betting network. Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson here with you. All 30 teams, Jeff, in action today. We got a nice balance between some early games, some afternoon games, and nice night slate coming our way. I know you have some picks lined up for all of the later games. Give you some score updates. Not a ton of runs on the board so far. We just finished up the 6th inning in Milwaukee. That is a 1-1 game between the Brewers and the Royals. Jackson Chourio, as we mentioned at the top of the show, has his first home run of the season. We're at the top of the 9th in Cincinnati already, Jeff. Rangers holding a 1-0 lead over the Reds. Just 5 total hits in that game. Pirates leading the Rays 2-1. Angels and Cardinals knotted up at 1-1 in the bottom of the 6th. We have a rain delay in Chicago on the south side. Didn't even make it through the top of the 1st inning. Already rain in Chicago. Talked a little bit earlier about Paul Skeens, that strikeout prop, 7.5 today. He's through 6 innings. He's already thrown 87 pitches, Jeff, and he's only got 4 strikeouts. So that one not looking great.
No, not great at all. I like how O'Neill Cruz hit that stolen base prop today and not yesterday when I was on it, of course. He's also homered in this game too. So a couple of interesting outliers there for Pittsburgh, trying to get that second win of the year there for them after kind of a desultory start. They're in Florida. They never got out of Florida after spring training. They stuck around, lost 3 out of 4 in Miami. Now they're trying to avoid getting swept in Tampa.
A lot of fun pitching matchups today as well, Jeff, as we get back to the top of the rotation for a lot of teams. And, one that I'm keeping an eye on, we got Jameson Taillon going up against Jeffrey Springs, Cubs on the road at the Athletics, not the Oakland Athletics, just the Athletics. And looking at this game, Jeff, pretty tight on the money line. A's -118, Cubs -102, total 8.5 runs. And I know you're looking at that one.
I am. Jameson Taillon was really rough in his season debut. Not just the runs, but also the lack of strikeouts. He generated just a 6.3% swing strike rate. That's even below last year. He's not much of a strikeout pitcher. And in this ballpark at Sutter Health Field, I think the ball kind of tends to fly. And it's the first day game in Sacramento. How's the ball going to carry there? Most of the reports I've read suggest that there hasn't been a huge, significant day-night split, but something worth watching there a little bit. Meanwhile, Kyle Tucker for the Cubs is homered in 4 straight. I'm kind of watching to see if that carries over. He has 8 barrels already this season, most in baseball by a margin of 3. I think the next highest is 5 barrels so far this year. The other thing to note on Taillon, last year, he was worse on the road than he was at home by a pretty good amount. 4.58 ERA, 122 whip on the road, compared to 2.18 and 1.06 respectively at home. So in a ballpark in Sacramento that I think is kind of tricky, I think that's going to contribute to a higher total. Jeffrey Springs was really good in his debut, but the Cubs are red hot too. So I kind of like the over at 8.5 runs. These early games aren't helping me with this lean, but I'm going to go ahead and roll with it anyhow. Over 8.5 runs at -110 is what I'm going to go with here.
Counterpoint: we are due for more runs as this day goes along.
Yes, theory.
That game will be starting up in about 45 minutes. A little bit later this afternoon, this is a 4:10 Eastern first pitch. The Giants and the Astros. Giants won yesterday, a low-scoring game. Today, it's Landon Roop taking on Framber Valdez. Total in this one, Jeff, down a bit at 7.5. I know you're still looking under.
Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit here because we have some countervailing trends. First of all, Houston, just awful start to the season. Just 9 runs so far in 5 games this year. Jordan Alvarez hasn't gotten off the schneid yet. Jose Altuve homered the other day, so at least they've got that. But no Cam Smith, the touted rookie in the lineup today. They're giving him a day off, maybe to kind of let him slow things down. It's not like he's the problem. It's the entire lineup has been the problem. We got an interesting pitching matchup here. Landon Roop making his season debut for the Giants. He beat out Hayden Burnsong for the 5th starter's job. Shuttle between him, both MLB and AAA last year, shuttle between the rotation and relief work. But he was fantastic this spring. And there's a lot of people that are on Roop. I'm kind of curious to see how he does. And, what has been a good matchup so far this season, not traditionally always that good of a matchup, but it's Kyle Tucker-less. And so far they're missing him. The other note on the Giants I think is noteworthy is Elio Ramos has been awesome so far. Has an extra base hit in all 5 games this year. I wonder if he continues that trend. Because of the Astros issues scoring runs and because Framber's on the mound for the Giants, going against the Giants, I'm going to go under 7.5 runs, small lean here, minus 118. One note on the Giants lineup. They have 8 right-handed hitters in the lineup against a left-handed starter in Framber Valdez, but Valdez actually has reverse splits. Last year, he held right-handers to a 214, 284, 311 line. You like seeing that? That's a really bad hitter in real life there. If Framber can replicate that today, then I think that under will hit.
Astros minus 175 on the money line in that game against the Giants. Let's take a look at Guardians Padres, Jeff. This is Ben Lively going up against Dylan Cease. Padres would be the hottest team in baseball if the Dodgers didn't exist, but a 6-0 start for San Diego. They've won the first 2 games of this series by a combined score of 14-2. They're minus 185 favorites on the money line. Where do you look in this game?
Okay, I'm kind of honing in on the strikeouts. I just want to make one quick note, though, too. The Padres did the deal with Jackson Merrill the other day. 9 years, $135 million extension. This is what smart teams do. They get a young breakout guy, and they lock him in. The Braves have done this for years. The Padres did this with Tatis. It's so smart to lock up your good, young, emerging young player there. That way you don't get that free agency drama as you get close to in the arbitration years. I think you have to believe in the player, obviously, but a really smart play by the Padres. But I'm focusing in on strikeouts here. Padres, not only are they 6-0, they lead Major League Baseball in not striking out, 16.3% K percentage, up against a pitcher in Ben Lively who doesn't often strike batters out. 18.7% K rate last year, was even lower in his first start against the Royals. Keep in mind, he was getting that as a surprise start because Tanner Bybee came down with food poisoning. Lively, I think, is attackable too. His xERA was nearly a run higher than his actual 3.81 ERA last year. I think this is a guy that the Padres can attack. So I'm going to go the under on 3.5 strikeouts for Lively. You're not getting a great price at minus 145. And I'm also going to take, I'd also dabble in a Padres team total over 4.5 for San Diego at plus 100.
All right, Red Sox and the O's later tonight, Jeff. This is a 6:35 p.m. Eastern first pitch. Another fun pitching matchup here. Garrett Crochet making his second appearance of the season. Just got the big contract. They also just paid Christian Campbell earlier today. He's going up against Zach Eflin in this AL East battle. Red Sox minus 125 on the money line on the road in Baltimore. O's plus 105. When you're looking at this game, Jeff, I have an inkling based on your previous props here. Are we going back to the strikeouts?
We are. This is another one where I'm kind of like, on this, there's countervailing measures here going on here because Zach Eflin only had 2 strikeouts in his first start, but the Red Sox are one of the biggest strikeout teams in baseball so far, and it's not all Rafael Devers. It just seems like it. 15 Ks and 19 plate appearances, but they're striking out as a team 29% of the time. I'm going to go under on Eflin because I don't think he's a strikeout pitcher. I feel like the Red Sox are going to get a little on track today. So I'm going to take the under 4.5 Ks. You get plus money on this one here, plus 120 on Zach Eflin.
Okay, there we go. Again, Boston minus 125 on the money line, total 7.5 there, slightly shaded to the over. Before we get to our best bets, Jeff, I want to fit in Diamondbacks Yankees real quick. This is Zach Gallen versus Carlos Rodon. Your play in this game is
the over 7.5 on this. Weather is negative. I was surprised by the number, but then I looked at the weather. 50% chance of precipitation, wind blowing in 11 miles an hour. But Arizona killed left-handers last year. 119 WRC plus against lefties last year. Highest runs in baseball. We'll take the over in this game.
Our best bets, as always, are brought to you by GBank, the official bank of VSiN, and GBank is up in the ante with up to a $750 bonus for new GBank Visa Signature Card customers. First, new customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening receive a $250 bonus. And if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within 30 days of opening that account, you'll receive another $500 bonus. So that's potentially $750 in bonus cash. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank, subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that is VSiN.com/GBank. Jeff, we've run the gamut, over these last few days and last couple of weeks. You've given us some college basketball, some NBA, some baseball, even some hockey. Now we got a golf best bet from you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go Corey Connors top 10 plus 150. He's been in the top 10 the last 3 tournaments in great form. I think there are better odds there than trying to go the 16-1 win bet. He has shorter odds than guys like Cantlay, Batia, the defending champ. So let's just go top 10.
Okay, there we have it. Corey Connors to finish top 10 at the Texas Open. That's plus 150. Mentioned this one briefly earlier, Jeff. Devin Vassell, over 2.5 threes. It's minus 120 at DraftKings. He's gone over this number in 11 of his last 16 games, averaging close to 3.5 makes in that span. I think this is a spot to target the Denver Nuggets after that wild double overtime game last night. That's going to do it for us here on Prop Points, but Make It Rain with Adam Shine is coming up next. He's going to have Greg Peterson on to give his best bets in college basketball and the MLB. Don't miss it. It's coming up next right here on VSiN.